Thank you very much, comrades. This evening, we are in the political school of the NNLC. My name is Sbusiso, Xaba, the national chairperson of the PAC. We will be facilitating a workshop on political strategy. Comrade Musa, over to you to welcome us.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Ngithathele lithuba ngemukele Macabane lasangenile ku-platform. Ngiphinde ngithathele lithuba ngimokelele wena, Chairperson. So i-topic yalamuhla sitabe sikhuluma about external conflicts. As on why conflicts among different political parties and how to handle such situations, just to plot the way forward on the strategy to use. So nasikubuka nalakangwane kukhona kulama political parties lehlukahlukene kulama kuyaliwa and Macabane kufuna ade ukuthi aphuma kanjani kuloko. So lokunye, just to emphasize on political education and training, kuthi sihlangane siMacabane ukuthi singenele such classes. So it helps us to transform comrades to cadres, where cadres must be better understanding of the revolution and how it is carried out in the environment of which it has to be done. Thank you so much, Macabane. Ngicabanga sinalabanye batasikhanza ngendlela basenetinkinga lapha nalapha maybe tamatata. Over to you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Nobala. Today we are looking at political strategy. In politics, there is an art and a science. We have emphasized in this platform that we must master the science of revolution. But also there is an art that we must, a personal touch that comes in. And this becomes very important, especially when we're gonna win external conflicts. As we said, when we're dealing with internal conflicts, conflicts are normal. That's a normal state of existence, is conflict. The non-conflict is an abnormality. So if we want to live a safe life, is for us to master the area of conflict. How do we handle conflict? I just like this quote that I am showing you, that nothing is stable in the realm of power. Politics by nature is a fight for power. That's why, if you remember some time ago, I said, do never create a structure that does not contest power. Because once it cannot contest power, it contests the power that you have as leadership. So even externally, that's how we should think of our maneuver, that we are in something that is always fluid in its nature of our business. What is this strategy? Strategy has many definitions, but simply it's putting up a plan that will ensure that you get to your goals with the resources that you have. When you look at strategy, it's basically a series of sequence options that you choose. So it is about decisions. But mainly when you look at strategy, because that word is normally used quite loosely, it normally talks about the how. So you got the goals that you have as an organization and the mission that you have ultimately to have the African people free. But how are you gonna achieve that? So when you do the goals, what I just said is more of a vision. When you do the goal, then you break up with how would I see that I've reached my destination? Then you then have to have a strategy how you get there. You will see if you look from a bottom, something that we won't touch much, which is tactics. When you look at tactics at the bottom, you consider that you have strategy, your mission, your vision, your values. You'll see that the values or the principle of how you live, the way of life for the organization, it's extremely long-term, it's permanent. Whereas a vision, it's a very long-term element. You'll see the example that it's on the slides that you are looking at 20 years for you to arrive at the vision. I do not know if you remember when we did the analysis of Magcejeni campaign, that the vision that was there is still relevant now of establishing a multi-democracy in Swaziland. It was a long thing, but there were things to be done before then. Magcejeni was just a tactic or a campaign, but it had to meet strategic goals that are clear, which was to win society over. It had a mission that it was fulfilling, to say that we want to have to be able to push the monarch in the manner that it moves out of this power position, which is absolute, to another. At that time, we're talking about the constitutional monarch and things like that. The vision is ultimately for our people to be totally free, to be able to govern themselves in every way. The value is to be able to establish Pan-Africanism. So you see that when you think about the organization, tactics are the only thing that is internal. Everything else is outside the party. There is no real power inside the party. The power is out there in the blue ocean, as some of the strategists will talk about the Red Sea, the Red Ocean and the Blue Ocean. Red Ocean being the areas that we know. Blue Ocean is when we go out there to the unknown and find new opportunities. What makes a good strategy? What gives you tools for you to then fight the external? You really have to invest in researching.
Exactly.
You have to go down and understand your environment. You have to go down and understand yourself, because without good research, you also misunderstand yourself, overestimate yourself, underestimate yourself, because you don't have a science that drives and rigor and well understanding of who you are, what capacity you have, as compared to other players in the political environment that you operate in. A strategy is not good if it's not accessible. Accessible in terms of the constituency that you want, accessible in terms of resources. Just writing a paper that is beautiful, that is ideal, does not assist any political party. What assists is that your constituency must be able to consume the fruits that you provide. It must be executable. You don't embark in tactics that you have not spent time in developing. So you must develop your capabilities so that you can execute whatever you call a strategy. Because a strategy actually comes to life only when you start allocating resources to it and make it come to life. A strategy is not the paper. The paper is just to start the level of thinking. We are looking at how do we handle external conflicts. We handle external conflicts through strategy. As a political party, we need to develop a strategy that is forward-looking, that is clear, that is, we know how we're gonna execute it. We have the resources to execute it. Our constituencies are able to eat our fruits. I'm just gonna show you this. I'm not gonna get into details of it. But strategy is basically, how do you as an organization position yourself? How do you create unique value proposition for the constituencies that you want to serve? Do you know who you want to serve? Do you know how those people want to consume your value? Because in the realm of politics, we win by controlling institution, which is government, one of the institutions, but including other institutions, as we committed that from now on, we will contest power everywhere it appears, particularly outside what we detest, the Nkundla system. But we'll contest power in different arenas because we want to make sure that we're clear about the people we represent, we're clear about how we attract them, we're clear about what do they want and what language do they speak that speaks to them, that speaks to their hearts. As I always say that emotions, constituencies are brought in by emotions. However, revolutionary must stay in the logic rhyme, but must utilize emotive tools to win over constituencies. Because people go to what they like even more than what they need. What is not strategy? What is not strategy? It's all the good things that we do, best practice, learning from other organizations, working like other organizations work, being fast, being good campaign organizers. All these things that are capabilities are more fitting more into capabilities and tactics rather than in strategy. Strategy is broad, is long-term. I think when we continue to discuss this issue of winning battles outside, we will tackle the issue of capabilities and tactics. But today we're looking at how do you win in long term. To quote a Chinese strategist, he says that strategy, it's a way to victory. Even bad strategy is just a slow route to victory. But only if you have tactics with no strategy. Zunzi, Chinese general, says that you then have a situation where you are guaranteed to fail. He says it's noise before defeat. Comrade Mafafa, over to you. The hand is up, Comrade Mafafa. It seems like the hand is up by chance. Let's proceed. So there are things that are this strategy that we will use in the contest for power outside. And there are things that are not strategy, but are things that are important that we must have. Generally, how do you formulate the strategy? There is a part of strategy formulation that you embark on, which has to generally, how is the environment in my political space? How is the political environment in Swaziland? It's a matter of numbers. How many political parties? How is the population? How are the districts? What is that district looking like? Is there a political party that is strong in this district? What are other political parties strong in and what are they weak in? Who are we chasing? How are the demographic in society? If we had to win, which constituency do we choose to serve? Because you cannot serve everyone. That is just a disaster waiting to happen. Even in the areas of conflict, if you've decided to belong to everyone, then we have a challenge that for you, we now don't know how would we handle, because you will end up fighting your own constituents. Because at some stage, the interest of constituencies collide. Because as we said, as Pan-Africanists, we always chase African interest more than chasing the positions that we have. You also must know, what are you good at? What are you good at? What is your core competency as an organization? Then out of that, you have a map that you follow. You create a strategy map, step by step. As I said earlier, strategy is a sequence of options. So you make options in time. In strategy, the most favorite word is no, I don't do that. Because everything is good, but not everything is useful. As Solomon says in his book, that everything is good, but not everything is allowable, but not everything is good. So that is very important in the arena of strategy, that you must prune what you don't do so that you can be left with what you do. So out of this, you then get into the implementation stage where you then contest for power. So you got a formulation, you must formulate your strategy properly, and you must implement. A re-emphasis, a good strategy that is not being implemented, it's not a strategy, it's a nice piece of paper. A strategy only starts when you are doing something about it, which is first of all, allocating resources, preparing resources, and making those resources start to do that element in a good sequence. Is there any question so far? I've been very theoretical. I think we will get into more practical look at things as we move to this stage. Then the meat of the day, how do you then make the choices, how do you then get into the fight and win? Because we don't want to fight to be in the fight that never ends. When we say that we are in a conflict with the monarch, at some stage we must tilt in our favor. If we say that we are working with many political parties, but we know that at some stage we will have to have one party that leads government and it must be us. How do we get there? Comrade Mafa.
Thank you, Chairperson. Angano manyavakala Mafrika.
Uyezwakala clear.
Yes, Mafrika. Ukuthi le network ihle ithi kungikhatha kancane. I'm following Mafrika. Kubuyela emuva ku strategy, strategic plan ngale formation ngale ngemuva. You indicated a part lokuthi kulama constituency lesiyakiwe kulama communities. Kunekwenteka uthole lokuthi yes, kunekwenteka ukuthi uthole lokuthi kunalamanye i-political party maybe lo wathi ukuthi if I go to Shiselweni, there is this political party kulesigodi lesi maybe less strong. Then ukuthole lokuthi that political party maybe implement strategies ayo, maybe actions ayo or campaigns then you are an organization like us, maybe we are saying the NNLC, we want to also mobilize to that area, that there's a strong political party maybe in that area. Ingabe in advice as an organization, we would see how can we come up with a right strategy. Let's talk about in that consequence, because ours njengokushido sizama kwenda ukuthi ama communities sive ukuthi lama communities kahle kahle akhala ngani si ensure ukuthi si serve my interest emaswati emamasisi. Thank you.
The beauty about people is that most of the time they still shallow in understanding their own needs. So it basically calls upon you to say, how do we go deeper in understanding this society and its deepest needs, and we're able to talk to it? I think that you are already taking us to where we're going, because those are the 9 areas that you implement when you are then implementing the strategy to contest in that manner. But from a formulation point of view, understand it, but understand their problem a little bit deeper than your opponent. But explain it simpler than your opponent. So in the level of articulation is that element. And secondly, then you must know what you are good at and attract people to what you are good at, your abilities. What in the military, they will call it your capability. Are you good at the campaign? Are you good at just shouting at the system? Whatever you are good at, utilize that to displace your rival. Although you will know that they are a strategic competition that is stronger than you. I do not know at high level, does it make sense? But as I said, that it's where we are actually getting into now.
It is clear, Mafrik. It is clear. It is clear.
So you come to an area, there is already a conversation going on. When there are people, there are things that they are busy with. There are things that they are involved in. So as a political party, when you arrive in this area that might have a stronger competition than you, or just opponents that might come now or later, or you are just fighting the environment because people are not politicized. The first question is, what conversation do you want people to have? Can you control the agenda? We're not talking about the agenda of the meeting, although this works well as well in the meeting. You are going to a meeting of multi-parties. How do you make sure that you control the agenda? How do you make sure that what is discussed there is what you want it to be discussed there? How do you prepare more than anyone else so that you can wrestle the agenda to your own direction? Do you really want the PPA, for example, to be discussing if parties are going to Dikundla or not? Do you want us to discuss another program that needs to be pushed? How do you position yourself so that the agenda in the country, the agenda of the country, the agenda in the discussions of the country, it's about what NNC wants to be discussed? Not only to be discussed, what needs to be done? Because strategy is won at doing. Remember, we always said, don't worry about the argument. It doesn't talk as loud as action does, because you want to win on the action side rather than win on the debate side. Although debate, of course, it's important to make you shine as an organization and to make you knowledgeable. But first thing, you want to control the agenda. In the agenda, there are decisions. You want to select the decision criteria. You want to, before a decision is made, you want to have created an environment where a good decision is predetermined. So it's not only controlling the agenda, then people make decisions that are not in your favor. Information is very critical to decisions. How do you control the information? Our strategic competition currently in the country control radio and TV. So you see, we are in a disadvantage. They control the newspapers in the country. How do we make sure that Eswatini we control access to information? Even worse, as Pan-Africanists, DSTV, which pushes an agenda of liberal politics, it's predominant also in Eswatini. People can access it. How do we then work and control access to information? So the arena of strategy is not an easy arena. That's why we need to dig deep. Like now we're working on the website. That is an attempt to control access to our own information, at least information about us. Because in Azania, how the PAC really had setback is that people knew us from our enemies. Our enemies will tell them that our policy is to throw whites into the sea, which was not our policy. But who wants to work with a bloodthirsty group that just wanna do something that is absolute? Remember that our people think they eat because white people give them food, because they are the only people who can farm, according to their interpretation. And when you come and say that you wanna throw them into the sea, they just see hunger. But my point here is that because we did not invest in controlling information, we lost. Our competitors bought newspaper companies. Even now, they own newspaper companies over and above controlling the public broadcasters and the public broadcasting system. I can assure you we're one of the most active parties in the country. But because we are not pushing a liberal agenda, those who control information make sure that we look like we don't exist at all. I do not know about the NLC. Do you have plans that you've set to control the agenda? Do you have plans that you've set that the decision criteria and forums that you are in, the decision criteria in the homes of people are the decision criteria that are determined by the NNLC? Do we have tools and assets to control the information? Ukraine and Russia, first things that the Europeans and Americans did was to shut all Russian TVs across Europe, all Russian broadcasters, YouTube, whatever. They made sure that they control information. They always say that freedom of information to everyone else. But once Europe was threatened, it did not use its assertion of soft power of managing. They became crude that Russian TV shall never be there, or RT will not be there. Any Russian sponsored media will not be here in our countries as the war starts. So how do you squeeze out your enemy's information out of the public? That's a challenge that it faces NNLC. How close are we to the media people? How close are we to the journalists? Do we invite them to Msebenzi ekhaya and the parties that we have so that they feel close to us? Are we having an objective of establishing our own newspapers, our own channels of information? Are we able to disrupt other people's access to information? In using external experts, there are things that you see when you are involved in the situation. There are things that you don't see when you are involved in a situation. So utilizing external experts become critical. I think that your use of external experts, part of it is the experts that come in these forums and do the work together and explain different phenomena without prescribing to the party, but sharing on different experts that the party can start critiquing and looking at it and raise elements which the party must make a decision. You see, in the military operation or in the war in Ukraine, depending which side are you on, you will see that the Russians have brought Chechens. The Russians invited that foreign fighters must come through if they want. Russia will be willing to assist them. You see the same thing in Ukraine. Ukraine quickly put the so-called, what they call the foreign legion that was invited to fight the war, to assist them to understand the war, to look at the war differently, and to move in the arena of war. They went to, the Americans have been really consulting, training. The Germans have been training Ukrainians. On the other side, although it's not visible, but the Russians have been engaging Chinese and have been engaging Indians quite aggressively in the war of economy, in the war militarily. Are we sufficiently exploiting the outside expertise? We had legal cases that we had. I remember that the national chairperson used to run around a lot to assist people to get professional help in the conflicts that we had, legal help in various areas. Are we looking around and pulling external expertise fast enough? So that they strengthen our hand. How much control do we have on external, on influential people? There is a party that became popular very strongly. What do they use? They use the popular person as the central head. How much access do we have to influential people? Do we have influential people who are members of the party? Influential outside the party, influential for being themselves. Artists, known teachers, abathandwayo, known unionists. Do we have access to those kind of people? Do we have control in how much access do we have? Do we have control in limiting access to others? Which is why we kept on saying, let's go and contest everything outside Dinkunza, so that our people are known, our leaders are known people, not only from being an NLC, but for being leaders of society in one area or another. We talked about forming coalition in the arena of campaigns before, but you must form fronts. Most of the time you have to form fronts. I normally say that in forming coalition, for me, I normally prefer to form coalition with non-political parties, with many other institutions that assist, and we build other institutions, for example, cooperatives that are for agriculture, that work in the agricultural space, that are for production, cooperatives that are for finance. that can assist us to advance our other campaigns when we say that we got an economic campaign or we got a campaign that can build us something else. So forming those coalition and forming those coalition with a purpose in mind becomes a very strong weapon in us contesting power and expanding our influence. I think that from a political perspective, you already work with two multi-party structures which assist to advance the primary goal that we have now of establishing multi-party democracy in Eswatini. You must co-opt the opposition. As you indicated before, we used to only know 3 organizations in Eswatini which were leading the struggle for multiple democracy. There's been an increase. Can we swallow any of those oppositions that exist in the country? Can we at least cooperate with them a little bit aggressively, closely? Coalition are a little bit loose, co-option, it's a little bit closer in engagement. In line with control of information, symbols are critical. Rituals and symbol is what we call culture. How do we then manipulate symbols that are known or symbols that we create so that society, when they see those symbols, they associate with us? And when they see other parties doing that, they normally say that we are doing that thing is an NNLC thing, or those are NNLC people, only to find that it's another organization. It's just that they used the symbols that society associate with us. How do we use interpersonal manipulation? You know that in business, they normally say people do business with people. They don't do it with organizations. So how do we create relationships that we are able to enforce our will, because we can know who to call? We have softened people up in other political parties, in other institutions, so that the ground is soft for us. So let's put it in the context of you getting into that area, the question that was asked earlier, to say that we want to get into the community, but there's another party already there. Just follow this, change the agenda and change the decision, change the access to information, utilize experts outside that community. Sometimes you use the same officials of the government to come and do something in the name of the community without making them aware that they are already working on an NLC program. You might find that people don't have access to schools because they don't have birth certificate. NLC cannot issue birth certificates, but manipulating internal personality You might know a government official that works in the Interior Ministry, in the Home Affairs. You facilitate that those people get their documentation. You've changed the crisis now, and you've changed the agenda, you've changed the decision. You control the access to information because you are the one who knew this. You brought an external expert that facilitated for that for those documentation. You brought you knew the influential person. You were the influential person in this access. Maybe it's not you as the organizer. Maybe it's someone else in the party who had the influence to get the right person. So the combination of these things assist you. If you remember in our discussion on the internal, we said that there is escalation and de-escalation. Sometimes it's very important that we de-escalate when we cannot fight that fight. We escalate when we have an advantage. There comes a time where we had a collision, where we need to break it because it no longer serves us, because we are not standing on a position, we are standing on interest. But all these things cannot happen if you don't have strategic leadership, when you cannot exert your strategic leadership, where you don't have a leadership that can operate in a long-term view. You cannot do these things if you cannot build a capability or you have not built a capable organization. So capability, it's always people who can do that thing, who can implement these political strategies, assets that can be used by these people to operate this system, processes. That's why internal policies, predetermined way of the working style becomes critical that the organization have. We must know how do we bury our own people so that it becomes a process. Do we go there on the first day? Do we leave people in the family for the whole week? What are those people going to do? What are they wearing when they are there? So that we build that capability of winning people when we bury our own people. We need always to put our budget and our resources according to strategy. When you say your strategy is this, and you put your money, when you get the resources, you channel it in an opposite direction, then your real strategy is where your money is. So can you align and link those two to push to the end, towards the goals that you have set for yourself? I've already touched the issue of policies and procedure, very important. Best practice, we have to learn from other parties and take what is good from them and implement among ourselves. We have to continuously be better. The party should be asking, do we understand the environment today as we understand it yesterday? How can we understand it better? Are we implementing, are the plans that we have, the tactics that we have to achieve the strategy, are we good enough in them? Are they the right tactics? So all those things must continuously improve. The quality of our membership must improve. The numbers must improve. So we create everything that has improved. Those processes must have systems that support them. Our reward systems must be supportive to what we say, to where we say that we are going. We must build a good culture within our own organization. And reporting. We must have a style of reporting. In the environment that we're in, not everything can be written, but proper reporting, proper monitoring, proper review becomes critical. That control mechanism, everything we do must have an input, a process, an output, and a feedback. That feedback of how have we done? Are we really improving? How is our culture? Is the culture staying as we want it? Is it becoming inappropriate? The interventions that we are making to change it internally, the capability, do we have sufficient people who know all these areas that we want to build within the organization that are critical for us? Or we have gaps that we look? Do we see what other organizations are doing, what we can learn and put in ourselves without mimicking, but drawing the lessons, using it in our own way? So, when we do these things, other things are overt, other things are covert. For example, when we say that we're going to change the agenda, you just don't pitch up when you have not been in the meeting, those meetings, or when you have not been in that society and say that I have arrived, therefore I will change. There is homework underground that you need to do. You might have to run a covert operation that will ensure that you are able to do what you need. I don't know if there are questions before I move any further. No questions at this moment. I must indicate that the approach that we are using is intentionally not political rhetoric, because we get lost into political rhetoric instead of learning the skill and make sure that we apply the skill effectively. However, if we take away today, let's be clear about these 9 areas that as a political party we need to master. These 9, it's each one of these, it's a skill on its own to say that how do you control, how do you ensure that decisions are complete and are complete in your favor? How do you make sure that decisions that you don't want fall away? How do you make sure that you control information? How do you build those systems of controlling information? How do we tap to many expertise so that we are a river, we're not a lake? How do we make our people train our people to be influential in different sectors of society so that when we need them, when even we share them with other parties, it's after members mature, some of them should not necessarily carry the label of the party. Should be people to be brought to show that, you see, even these experts, which are our influential people, are agreeing with the NNLC, whereas they are part of the NNLC. Last opportunity for questions before we go to closure for the day. Quietness has two elements. Either what was said is not relevant, or it's not being heard, or it's crystal clear. Those are the two options. I hope that it's the latter, that we have cleared ourselves. Musa, Mamba, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Comrade National Chair, for an eye-opening session. I just want to get to know if with the PAC that you do have maybe what one would call a social committee, which will be looking at such things as arrangements for how we are going to bury our members in such a way that will be impactful, will impact to the community, let's say, and make people want to join the party. Because I think maybe as NNLC, we probably need such a structure that will be looking at this. And I'm just checking with you if you have such a committee that looks to these social matters. Then on the part of the how can I call it, the publicity of the party, it's so worrisome with the NNLC, really. One time we had a function as NNLC where we moved from the Coronation Park and we went through the busy bus rank street up to the Mbabane Inkundla, right in town. There was not even a single publication of that public, event. And I'm thinking that probably as NNLC, we didn't do much over the years with regards to establishing links of ensuring that at least what we do is being put in the public space so that people are made aware of our activities. I think, I don't know if I would say this, just that question and a comment. Thank you, Comrade Chair.
Thank you very much. I think that firstly, as the PAC, we don't have that as a committee. It's more an expectation from the branch that if there's a member who has fallen or a member of the family in where the branch member is fallen, we are expected to be supportive, because people don't want to support a party that don't care. So you show that you care, especially when you care about someone who can do nothing for you. The one who has passed away, he cannot come back and be a member again. So when you neglect the sick and the dead, the members of the family and society at large start looking at you funny. But the party that has mastered this, it's one winning factor they have. I won't mention their name in Azania. They are very good. They go as hijacking funerals of people they got no idea that they know. They just bring their hands and wear their uniform. They've got a different uniform to a party uniform when they go there. But everyone knows that it's them. And you see them staying the whole week there, assisting, carry wheelbarrows and doing things like that. So we have to learn. We have not mastered it as the PAC ourselves. We hope that the NLC can master it before we do. We normally are excellent on the day of the funeral. That one I will give. Normally we come in numbers. We also do some things that other communities don't like, but it makes us happy. About guns, because a former liberation movement, you might hear a lot of bullets when we have one of our senior members passing away. So there are rituals that might be good or bad, depending on how you look at them. So NNLC must decide on how do it want to approach such questions as bereavements in general, which don't sound political because it's not nice arguments. And the biggest failure is for people who want to come on the day of funeral, make big speeches and think that's a biggest contribution. That's a minor contribution. You even find party members fighting who's gonna speak in a funeral when they were not there, when the person was sick for 3 months before he passed away. In terms of publicity, be careful of also not looking on one side. Yes, there is an angle that NNLC should have done a lot of work to make sure that it has a relationship, therefore publicity happens. But also remember that your enemy control, they can instruct editors to say, don't show that event. So it says, what have we built that will allow people to access this information in what we control or we got close to? There's social media now. How much of social media pleases us and how much do we share information that actually will attract people on awareness or on converting them to follow our cause? In closing, may I request Comrade Musa come in a word, then Comrade Hlajwayo close for us.
Thank you very much, leadership. It has been nice listening from what you want to make a contribution. It's not to fish on other people. I think it's a culture that we must revisit because people have been fishing in our net and creating organizations. I don't know how long, and I don't think it assists us to allow people to fish in our net. That's why we look at other communities where there are people who then say, how do we navigate this one? I think there is a need for us to also organize everyone who is not organized to it. But I want to agree with fully that strategy without resources and human resources won't work. I think that is one part that the NLC will have to look at more, because I think we have got more people and more decisions, but we will have to champion more, especially the issue of resources. With that, thank you for everyone who participated. And thank you again to the PAC and in particular the National Chair.
Africa. Comrade Musa, your mic is on. Thank you,
so much.
comrade. Go ahead, comrade.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, for such an important class based on the external conflict strategy. So my request here go Youth League, NNLC Youth League leadership. Because if we get just new strategies or even to amend the current strategies for visibility. Otherwise, thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. We will upload this on YouTube. Please let's share with the right people so that our organization learn. I hope that we're gonna get to a stage where we critique and criticize. It does not become one way, because as we say that the more we engage, the deeper we understand. The more we find that our yesterday's ideas were not the right ones. We need to move forward. Thank you very much. Iswelet.
But Comrade Patrick hand is up.
Comrade Patrick, I didn't see your hand. Oh, it's already talked.
Yes.
Unless you wanna come back, Comrade Mamba.
No. I'm done. I was able